In 1993, West Memphis was a town where people left their doors unlocked until three young boys rode their bikes into the woods and never came home. What followed wasn't just a search for a killer, but a satanic witch hunt that stole 18 years from three innocent teenagers. Now, as of April 23, 2026, a landmark Supreme Court ruling has changed everything. With advanced vacuum DNA technology hunting for a single microscopic cell, the truth is finally being pulled from the Delta mud. This is the final reckoning of the West Memphis 3. In the sweltering humidity of the Mississippi River Delta, where the urban pulse of Memphis, Tennessee stares across the water at the quiet insulation of West Memphis, Arkansas, a sense of safety used to be a birthright. In 1993, this was a community where people left their doors unlocked and children were free to roam the neighborhoods until the streetlights hummed to life. But on May 5th of that year, the shadows of the Arkansas Delta grew long and never truly receded. This is the story of 6 boys, 3 who were stolen from the world in a drainage ditch, and 3 who were marched to the proverbial gallows in a storm of cultural hysteria. This is the case of the West Memphis 3, a 30-year odyssey from ritual allegation to molecular truth. The nightmare began at Weaver Elementary. Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, all 8 years old, all members of the same Cub Scout pack, set off on their bicycles after the school day ended. It was a warm, sunny Wednesday, the kind of day meant for second-grade adventures. By 7 p.m., a father made the first frantic call to the police. By midnight, a small search party was navigating the thick, swampy undergrowth of Robin Hood Hills, a wooded patch of land tucked behind the Blue Beacon truck wash. It was a place children were told to avoid, a labyrinth of drainage ditches, interstate noise, and deep delta mud. The following afternoon, May 6th, the search took a sickening turn. Juvenile parole officer Steve Jones spotted a single black shoe floating in a muddy creek that led to a major drainage canal. As the searchers waded into the dark, knee-deep water, they discovered a forensic tableau of absolute horror. The 3 boys were stripped naked, their bodies submerged in the water. They had been hogtied with their own shoelaces, right ankles bound to right wrists, left ankles to left wrists, pulled tight behind their backs in a methodical, agonizing fashion. The violence was intimate and brutal. Christopher Byers, in particular, had sustained severe mutilation. In a town fueled by the Satanic Panic that gripped the nation in the early 90s, the forensics were quickly overshadowed by folklore. The West Memphis Police Department assigned the case number 93-05-0666, a choice that spoke volumes about the narrative already forming. Rumors of cults and ritual sacrifice rippled through the local pews. Preachers warned of the occult influence in heavy metal music, Ouija boards, and horror novels. The police didn't look for a transient or a known local predator. They looked for a monster they had already created in their minds. They found their target in 18-year-old Damien Echols, a high school dropout who wore black trench coats year-round, listened to Metallica, and openly dabbled in Wicca. Damien was the perfect archetype for a community's fear. He was an outsider in a town that demanded conformity. Along with his friends, Jason Baldwin and Jesse Miss Kelly Jr., he became the center of a profiling campaign that prioritized cultural aesthetics over physical evidence. The prosecution's house of cards was built on the shoulders of 17-year-old Jesse Miss Kelly. Jesse possessed an IQ of approximately 70, the border of intellectual disability. On June 3, 1993, he was subjected to a nearly 12-hour interrogation without an attorney or his parents present. Exhausted, confused, and pressured by detectives who allegedly used photos of the suspects as dart targets, Jesse provided a confession that was a mosaic of contradictions. He initially claimed the murders happened at noon, when the boys were still in class. He claimed they were tied with brown rope rather than shoelaces. But every time Jesse faltered, the detectives guided him back to their theory. He eventually repeated what they wanted to hear, that he had watched Damien and Jason kill the boys in a satanic rite. While investigators focused on the cult theory, they ignored chilling leads right under their noses. On the night of the murders, a disoriented black man covered in blood and mud, known as the Bojangles Man, had walked into a nearby restaurant and into the women's restroom. Police took scrapings of the blood he left on the walls, but they never sent them to a lab. They lost them instead. They also failed to thoroughly investigate the domestic landscape of the victims. John Mark Byers, Christopher's stepfather, had given a folding hunting knife to a documentary crew that was later found to have blood on the hinge. Blood consistent with both his and his stepson's. At the 1994 trials, the courtroom was a theater of bias. Prosecutors played heavy metal music and pointed to Damien's interest in Stephen King as proof of a depraved mind. Despite a complete lack of DNA or physical evidence linking the teenagers to the scene, the jury returned 3 guilty verdicts. Jason and Jesse were sentenced to life without parole. Damien, labeled the ringleader, was sentenced to death by lethal injection. For 18 years, Damien Echols lived on death row in the Varner Supermax unit. He spent 23 hours a day in a concrete box, enduring abuse from guards and the relentless humidity of the Arkansas summers. In his memoir, he describes being split like the atom, his psyche damaged beyond repair by nearly 2 decades of isolation. His only lifelines were his spirituality and a woman named Lori Davis, who began writing to him after seeing a documentary about the case and eventually married him in a prison visiting room. Outside the prison walls, the tide began to turn. The Paradise Lost documentaries brought the case to a global audience, sparking a massive advocacy movement. The first major forensic breakthrough came in 2007. Advanced mitochondrial DNA testing, technology that didn't exist in 1994, was performed on hairs found at the crime scene. The results were a thunderclap. None of the DNA matched Damien, Jason, or Jesse. However, a hair found caught in the ligature of Michael Moore matched the DNA profile of Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Stevie Branch. Another hair, found on a tree stump near the bodies, was consistent with David Jacoby, a friend of Terry Hobbs who had been with him that evening. This revelation opened a window into a different reality. 3 neighbors came forward with sworn affidavits, claiming they saw Terry Hobbs with the 3 boys at 6:30 p.m. on the night they vanished, directly contradicting his sworn statements that he hadn't seen them at all that day. Evidence surfaced of Hobbs's history of violence and his mistreatment of Stevie, including whipping the boy with a belt. Yet, the state of Arkansas continued to fight against a new trial. In 2011, a legal stalemate led to the controversial Alford plea. This rare maneuver allowed the West Memphis 3 to maintain their innocence, while acknowledging the state had enough evidence to potentially convict them again. On August 19, 2011, precisely 18 years after their incarceration began, the 3 men walked out of prison. They were free, but they were still branded as convicted murderers by a system that refused to admit a mistake. The quest for full exoneration has never stopped. For the past several years, Damien Echols has fought for the right to use the M-Vac wet vacuum system, a microbiological tool that can retrieve touch DNA from the deepest fibers of porous surfaces, like the shoelaces used to tie the boys. For years, the state claimed the evidence had been destroyed in a fire. In 2021, that claim was proven false when Echols' legal team located the evidence sitting in a box at the West Memphis Police Department. After a protracted legal battle, the Arkansas Supreme Court ruled in April 2024 that the right to prove one's innocence with DNA is not lost just because a person is no longer in state custody. On August 1st, 2025, a judge officially greenlit the M-Vac testing. By late 2025, the ligatures and hairs were sent to Bode Laboratories. Scientists there are searching for subsurface DNA A, the skin cells that may have been trapped inside the knots of the shoelaces, protected from the swamp water for over 30 years. As of April 23, 2026, the Arkansas Supreme Court has ruled that a new evidentiary hearing will take place to consider these findings. For the first time since 1993, the case has moved out of the realm of folklore and into the precision of molecular truth. The results could finally provide the silver bullet, identifying a new perpetrator or definitively clearing the names of the men who spent their youth in iron. The West Memphis 3 case remains a chilling testament to what happens when fear is allowed to drive justice. It is a story of 3 lives taken and 3 lives broken. And as the final results are analyzed at Bode Labs, the world waits for the answer to a 30-year-old question. Who really entered Robin Hood Hills that afternoon? And will they ever be held to account for the 3 Cub Scouts who never came home?